I keep in my office a black and white photo of a place called Syria, Poland. It's where my mom and the family come from. Following the Nazi invasion in 1939, the Jews in Syria were rounded up, sent to the Warsaw Ghetto, and liquidated. Except for the desecrated cemetery, there are no Jews in Syria today. There was no help for them. The free world claimed not to know, and even if it had, it probably still would not have helped. In 1939, the troubles of Polish Jews were nobody's problem but their own. Knowing that is part of me. It's one of the reasons I've always felt that serving on the Foreign Affairs Committee is so important. Not because I expect another Holocaust, though the Iranian regime seems intent on preparing one, and it must be stopped, but because there will always be a grave concern that the cry of people in distress or danger or being slaughtered will go unheeded. We said, never again. But it happened again. It happened in Cambodia. It happened in Bosnia. It happened in Rwanda, Congo, Sudan. It's happening today in Syria. And in each case, governments, including ours, like guilty children, look down at their shoes and say to no one in particular, "There's nothing we could have done." But that wasn't really true then, and it isn't true now. Even the weakest nation can bear witness. The least powerful country can still report the truth to the world. The most isolated state can, with no authority but its own, impose political and economic sanctions. And we are far from weak or powerless or isolated. But with regard to Syria, we have nonetheless failed to act. I've tried to explain politely to Syrian Americans who are almost trembling with anxiety for their relatives, and I have failed, principally, I think, because our policy is so completely incoherent. Somehow it manages to combine colossal moral failure and unimaginable strategic imbecility with the overpowering stench of hypocrisy, thanks to our feckless intervention in Libya. Congratulations, gentlemen. You've hit the policy failure trifecta. History will record not only how we mostly ignored the people of Syria in their hour of need, but worse, how we looked our own blindingly obvious national interests in the demise of the Assad regime. Virtually every single interest that we have in the Middle East, whether it's aiding Israel's search for peace and security, protecting Lebanon's sovereignty, preventing Iranian hegemony, undercutting Hezbollah and Hamas, nurturing Iraq's development, sustaining our partnership with Turkey, or just promoting democracy and human rights, is dramatically, even exponentially furthered by the Syrian people getting rid of the Assad regime. And to be very clear, I am not calling for U.S. military intervention in Syria. It's both unwise and unnecessary. But there is considerably more that we can and must do. First, and above all, the President must call for Bashar al-Assad, that blood-soaked dictator, to step down, trifling with the lives of the people of Syria with nuanced, lawyerly phrases like, quote, "President Assad must understand he is not indispensable," unquote, is shameful. Noting that Assad has lost legitimacy without calling for his immediate departure from power trivializes the deaths of thousands of Syrians killed by Assad's thugs. And most importantly, between the Syrian Accountability Act and the International Economic Emergency Powers Act, the President has at his disposal massive economic and political powers of coercion and punishment. The Obama administration has barely scratched even the surface of their utility in aiding the people of Syria and throwing off this regime of murderers and thieves and torturers of children. All bilateral trade with Syria should end immediately. All Syrian banks should be barred from the U.S. financial system. immediately. All Syrian regime assets in the United States should be frozen immediately. All official Syrian travel to the United States should cease immediately. We must act. I look forward with no joy to hearing from our witnesses' efforts to defend the indefensible and to explain the inexplicable. This shouldn't be that hard. You know, we didn't get involved in World War II because of the Holocaust. We didn't get involved when 1 million Jews were killed, or 2 million, or 3 million, or 4 million, or 1 million people who weren't Jewish were killed, or 2 million, or 3 million, or 4 million, or 5 million. We got involved because the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, and shame on us for waiting. We can't just be sitting here while these people are being slaughtered and maimed, where children are being killed, because we think it's better to observe the diplomatic niceties in our approach. Tell that to people whose kids, or kids whose families and parents are being killed. It's unfair. It's inhumane. It's unworthy of us as a society. I can understand we're waiting for the appropriate time, but for other people, the time is too late. It is in our every foreign policy interest for this guy to go. I know what you're waiting for. You're waiting for, just like we waited on all the others, for the guy to be everything but out the door before we say you should go out the door. To be able to go and blow him off the edge of the cliff so that there's no risk. He's already really out. Who's going to appreciate that? People appreciate you coming to their aid when they're at their most vulnerable. We're kind of risk averse here. But you know, this has to be done. You know what the outcome is going to be. And it's not the romantic in me that says in the end democracy is going to win and the street's going to will out. It's the mathematician in me that tells me that. And as somebody, and I think we all are, people who believe in the values that we espouse and that you've articulated so well here today. So what's the result of all of that reasoning and thinking and hemorrhaging from our hearts? What are we waiting for? Who does it hurt? Are we worried about hurting his feelings? We're hedging our bet here just in the odd chance that he's going to be able to hang on so that we can continue to do business with a murderer. Push him. Say it. Do it. He may not leave when you say it, and it's no embarrassment to us if not. The embarrassment is if we don't say it. Can we say it? Question mark?
Congressman, I share your sense of urgency and outrage. I don't think it's right or fair to say that we're standing still and hedging our bets. If we want to hedge our bets with the government, we don't call them barbaric. We don't constantly, on a daily basis, talk about the reprehensible conduct.
And names will never harm me.
Well, there's more than names. We are extremely focused. I'm focused.
Yeah, I understand, but what's the downside to saying to him, get out?
What we are saying is...
We're going to be embarrassed if he doesn't listen?
No, we are saying at this moment that we are standing behind the Syrian people and their demand for political change. This is about them. It's not...
Send them a Hallmark card.
No, it's not, because it's backed by action. And the action is an American ambassador who takes the risk of going out and standing in the street in Hama.
That was important and courageous.
And appreciated by the people who were standing there. It's our activity supporting the ability of the opposition to meet in Turkey, to meet inside the country. It's our effort to try to give them the tools to be ready for the day when change will occur, and it will occur.
I'm saying
all of those things are part of a strategy, and the strategy, not unlike what you're saying, is the expectation, the realization that President Assad
why not
has
lay
lost
down
his
your cards and
legitimacy.
go through all the rest of it anyway? Tell them, get out, and then continue with what you're doing. But let people know where we stand and not be ambiguous as we've been.
The gentleman's time's expired, but if either of the gentlemen would like to respond, they can.
Congressman Ackerman, the Syrian people know where we stand. That's why Robert Ford had his vehicle pelted with flowers as he's going through Hama. People know where we stand in Syria. They see what we're doing. And also, this idea that we're hedging our bets. I don't know how you calculate it, but I calculate that it's not going in Bashar's way. He cracks down more. He's going to enrage the people more. Demonstrations pop up all over the country in new places. They come closer and closer to the center of Damascus. He pulls back, as he should, and stops the torture and the shooting and the killing and the arrests. Then you have enormous momentum like you have in Hama. He's losing. But that doesn't mean that he's losing because of our words. He's losing because of what he's doing and because of the fact that the Syrian people are at last waking up from the political coma he's tried to keep them in for 40 years. And they have transcended their fear, and they are standing up for a better future for them. He's the past.
Thank you. The gentleman's time has expired. The Chair would just note that I'd like to say this is one of those rare occasions when the Republican chair and the Democratic ranking member agree, but we actually agree quite often on this committee, and I share the ranking member's frustration here relative to this matter.
We've tried to get you to say regime change, something that you would not be unhappy with from the tone of your explicit remarks, and the administration doesn't want to get too far forward in its skis, and despite the fact that we've tried everything short of waterboarding, and we may want to try that later.
We agree once again.
Up to our office.
That was just tweeted.
I'll move off of that. But getting it done, you don't have to say the words, I suppose, to get it done. In my opening statement, I referenced a list of things that I thought we should be doing now that would more than ratchet up the pressure. It would be hopefully to deal a more crushing blow to the regime, encouraging its abdication. What's wrong with those suggestions, and why haven't we done that? I know we've had some sanctions on some individuals from within the Syrian leadership. But why aren't we ending all bilateral trade? Why aren't we barring all the Syrian banks from our U.S. financial system? And why aren't we freezing the assets of Syria, all of the assets of Syria? And why aren't we imposing a travel ban on all of their government officials? You can do them one at a time if you like. And wouldn't that be helpful in getting the thing done without us saying the unthinkable?
Congressman Ackerman, thanks for the question. Part of what because we are looking at exactly these things you're looking at. I mean, we start from the reality that Syria is one of the most sanctioned countries in the world when it comes to trade and relations with the United States. Trade between the United States and Syria is quite low. It consists of only 5 areas: food, medicine, medical supplies, some civil aviation safety parts, and communications equipment.
Let's go straight to oil imports.
Okay, good question. We had a long discussion today.
And financial institutions.
We had a long discussion today with our European colleagues, because what we're trying to do is to move together with our European colleagues. You know, if we do oil and gas sanctions ourselves, we don't have oil and gas trade with the Syrians. It's not going to amount to a whole lot. There's questions about how much it hurts the Syrian people versus hurts the Syrian regime. It's an ongoing discussion, but what we're trying to do is to work multilaterally so that we and some of our other partners in Europe and elsewhere are taking the same steps in tandem, because it will have a much greater impact to do this together. It goes back to the fact that Syria has very few friends left, so other countries are looking at doing some of the same things that we're doing now.
When can we see a recommendation to freeze all the assets, or would you prefer that we send that over to you?
I mean, we welcome all tools we can have to try to put pressure on this regime, as, you know, leaving some flexibility leaving the flexibility in the president's hand for foreign policy.
These are tools that you have. I mean, you don't have to go Mother May.
No, and as I said, we start from the fact that it's a heavily sanctioned country already. So a lot of the stuff that the Europeans are doing now, we did years ago because of the terrorist support.
Why?
There are a lot
Let's get precise. Why don't we freeze all of the Syrian assets in the United States tomorrow? And all bilateral trade, with possibly the humanitarian stuff, exempted. And why don't we ban all travel?
You know, we're looking at a wide variety of tools.
How long are we going to look?
Congressman Ackerman, we're rolling out different sanctions, different designations all the time on Syria. But again, to the extent that we do this in partnership with others, that we take parallel steps, it's going to have a far, far greater impact, because there's just not that much trade between the United States and Syria. We shut it all off tomorrow.
Yeah, but it'll have
difference.
some impact if we do it, whether we do it together with them or not. And if we do it, maybe they'll do it. Why not start?
Well, I think we have started. And the fact that we've designated 27 individuals and entities since this all started. Are we going
to freeze all the Syrian assets in the United States anytime soon?
You know, we're looking at the steps to take, Congressman. That's all I can say. You know, but we're constantly looking at more and more designations as appropriate tools to pressure.
You're viewing this as a peep show. You're looking at this, you're looking at that, and people are dying.
Yeah, I guess I would just respectfully disagree with the fact that we're sounding inactive.
I'm not saying you're inactive. I'm saying you're not as effective as you should be or could be or have to be or are morally obligated to be. We should be doing, if you don't want to say the magic words, I understand that. I really don't, but I'll say that I understand it. But I don't understand why you're not using all the tools at your disposal, besides looking at them.
And the gentleman's time's expired, but I don't know if the gentleman want to answer the question or...
No, Congressman, I listened carefully to your list, and we will go back and look at each of the things you raise, and I'll make a commitment that we're going to have the conversation about each of them and see what more we can do. As Jeff said, as Assistant Secretary Feltman said, virtually every senior Syrian official is now subject to sanctions. And so you're suggesting there's other things we can do. We'll look at them and see if there's ways to ratchet it up.